Week 9 TNF, Dolphins vs. Ravens. Start M. Sit M. Picks Feet. Lamar Jackson, Zay Flowers, Tua Tagovailoa. Thursday Night Football in Week 9 brings a must-watch primetime clash between two AFC powerhouses, the Miami Dolphins and the Baltimore Ravens. This game isn't just about bragging rights, it's a fantasy football battlefield loaded with star talent. With names like Lamar Jackson, Tua Tagovailoa, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Zay Flowers, and Mark Andrews on the field, fantasy managers across the country are sweating every lineup decision. If you're unsure who to start or sit in this crucial matchup, you've come to the right place. We're breaking down every key fantasy player, matchup trends, and potential sleepers that could make or break your Week 9. Let's dive into the Start M, Sit M picks for Dolphins vs. Ravens, kicking off Thursday night under the bright lights. Quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson vs. Tua Tagovailoa. Let's start with the obvious. This QB duel has fireworks written all over it. Start M, Lamar Jackson, Ravens. You can't bench Lamar Jackson right now. The former MVP has been on a roll, combining elite passing accuracy with his signature rushing explosiveness. Over the past 3 weeks, Jackson has averaged 27 fantasy points per game, including 3 total touchdowns in Week 8 against the Browns. Miami's defense has improved, but they've still given up the 6th most rushing yards to quarterbacks this season. That's a glaring red flag against Lamar, who can single-handedly wreck fantasy matchups with his legs. Expect Baltimore's offense to rely heavily on Lamar's dual-threat abilities, especially with running back injuries piling up. Projection, 23 to 28 fantasy points. Start M, but with caution. Tua Tagovailoa, Dolphins. Tua has been a fantasy machine when protected, but a different story when pressured. The Ravens' defensive front has been relentless this season, ranking top 5 in sacks and QB pressures. That makes this matchup tricky. The good news: Tua still has Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, 2 of the fastest weapons in football. Expect the Dolphins to scheme short passes and quick reads to neutralize Baltimore's blitz-heavy approach. Tua remains a solid fantasy starter in all formats, but managers should temper expectations, especially if the Ravens control the clock with their ground game. Projection, 18 to 22 fantasy points. Running backs, Gus Edwards, Keaton Mitchell, Raheem Mostert, and Devon Achane. The running back situation for both teams is one of the biggest X factors of Week 9. Start M, Raheem Mostert, Dolphins. Even with Devon Achane expected to return soon, Raheem Mostert remains a strong RB2 play against Baltimore. He's still getting goal line touches and has scored in 5 of 8 games this season. His speed fits perfectly in Mike McDaniel's offensive design, and while Baltimore's run defense is elite, Mostert's ability to catch passes out of the backfield gives him a solid floor. Projection, 13 to 16 fantasy points. Sit M, Gus Edwards, Ravens. This one's tough because Gus the Bus Edwards has been a touchdown machine recently. But the Dolphins' front 7 has been quietly dominant against the run, allowing the 3rd fewest rushing yards per game since Week 5. Unless Edwards finds the end zone, his volume might not translate into big fantasy numbers. The emergence of rookie Keaton Mitchell also threatens to steal snaps and touches. Projection, 8 to 10 fantasy points. Deep sleeper, Keaton Mitchell, Ravens. If you're desperate for a flex option, Mitchell's speed gives him sneaky upside. Miami has struggled to defend perimeter runs, and Baltimore may give him a few explosive packages. Risky play, but high reward in deeper leagues. Projection, 7 to 12 fantasy points, boom or bust. Wide receivers, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman. Now we get to the most exciting part of this matchup, elite playmakers on both sides. Start M, Tyreek Hill, Dolphins. This one's a no-brainer. Tyreek Hill has been the best wide receiver in fantasy football this year, averaging nearly 22 points per game. Even against a physical Ravens secondary, Hill's world-class speed makes him impossible to contain for 4 quarters. Expect at least 1 deep shot early and plenty of yards after the catch. Projection, 24 to 28 fantasy points. Start M, Zay Flowers, Ravens. Zay Flowers has quietly been Lamar Jackson's most reliable wideout this season. The rookie is averaging 7 targets per game and leads Baltimore in receptions. Against a Dolphins defense that sometimes gets aggressive in coverage, Flowers could thrive on quick routes and crossing patterns. He's a strong WR2 play this week with potential WR1 upside if this game turns into a shootout. Projection, 14 to 17 fantasy points. Sit M, Rashad Bateman, Ravens. Bateman continues to be the odd man out in Baltimore's offense. With Flowers and Andrews dominating targets, Bateman's snap count and usage make him nearly impossible to trust. Keep him on your bench until we see consistent involvement. Projection: 4 to 7 fantasy points. Tight ends: Mark Andrews vs. Durham Smythe. Start M. Mark Andrews, Ravens. There's not much to say here. Andrews is an automatic start every week. His Lamar's safety blanket and red zone target, and he thrives in primetime. The Dolphins have allowed the 5th most fantasy points to tight ends this season. Expect Andrews to find the end zone at least once. Projection: 15 to 18 fantasy points. Sit M. Durham Smythe, Dolphins. Smythe just isn't seeing enough volume to warrant fantasy relevance. Miami's offense runs through Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, leaving little room for tight end production. He's a low-end T2 at best. Projection: 3 to 5 fantasy points. Defenses: Ravens vs. Dolphins. Start M. Ravens DST. Baltimore's defense is playing championship-level football. They've recorded at least 1 turnover in 6 straight games and have sacked opposing quarterbacks 28 times this season. While facing Miami is risky, their aggressive style could force mistakes if Tua gets pressured early. Projection: 9 to 12 fantasy points. Sit M. Dolphins DST. Miami's defense has been trending upward, but facing Lamar Jackson is a different story. The Ravens' offense can control possession and limit turnovers, a recipe for low fantasy production from opposing defenses. Projection: 5 to 7 fantasy points. X-Factor players to watch. Jalen Waddle, WR, Dolphins finally healthy and primed for a big breakout game. Justice Hill, RB, Ravens could sneak into goal line work if Gus Edwards struggles early. Odell Beckham Jr., WR, Ravens has shown flashes of life, but still risky in fantasy. Game prediction and fantasy outlook. This Thursday night clash is shaping up to be a high-energy, chess match type of game. The Ravens' physical defense meets Miami's track star offense, and fantasy points are going to be earned, not handed out. If you're betting on fantasy production, Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, Tyreek Hill, and Zay Flowers are your safest plays. Tua and Mostert are strong starts but come with some risk due to Baltimore's defense. Prediction: Ravens 27, Dolphins 24. Lamar Jackson outduels Tua Tagovailoa in a primetime thriller, and Zay Flowers finally delivers his breakout performance under the lights.